Okay, welcome everyone. I guess even before the a lot of the Olam arrives, we're going to start. I've always been told the best way to get the Olam to come timely is to start timely, and there is a logic to that. Daf Yomi Magid Shir, however, doesn't like that because it means that the people that come in get really lost. But we first of all want to wish Marshall Castle a mazel tov on the marriage of his son today. That's why Marshall wasn't here last night. He actually sent me a beautiful picture at the Kabbalah's Panim where they were toasting a l'chaim with our bottle of bourbon. So that was nice. We are also sponsored by A.B. Spry, with the tefillah that all children should get into yeshiva quickly and easily. We are sponsored by Baruch Ian, who is sponsoring the shir Lili Nishmas Esther Bas Yoni Yaakov Chaim Ben Abba Avram Ben Shmuel HaKoyin and Shama should have an aliyah. We want to have in mind Marshall Castle's brother, who is very ill, Mordechai Ben Sari Yehudis. We also want to have in mind my Shver, Avigdor Aryeh Ben Rivka, and Chai Tzipora Bas Rezel. They should all have a refuah shalema b'seich shar chayli Yisrael. There are several people here tonight already that I see were not with us last night, so they don't know that last night we learned 3 blot. Last night we learned 3 blot because of Tuesday night. Tuesday night we won't have a shir because of the Q&A at Irgun Shirei Torah. For those that missed the 3rd blot, it's an easy blot. You could pick it up either on YouTube. It's very easy to access it on YouTube or on TorahAnytime.com or on Kol HaLashon. My YouTube channel is Rabbi Moshe Meir Weiss. It's really very easy to go to, and it's very, very easy to retrieve it. Aaron, I'm right? It's very easy to take it off YouTube, right? Yeah. Let's see. Okay, so we are welcome in Richard Rosenzweig, Irving Fishbaum, Saba, Aaron Swade, Shalom Fogel, Mel Zachter, Stephen Holtzman, Ruven Pollack, Michal, Eddie Chazan, in his car, the Lowy family, Avram Hecht, David Helfgott, who is listening, as always, from Kol HaLashon. We are holding by the Ella, which is 10 lines from the bottom of Pei Beis Amud Beis, 10 lines from the bottom. What would be an example of where to Levi a woman falls from 2 brothers, where we say that Levi cannot be miyabim, because the din of Yibum is only when you fall from 1 brother, but not from 2 brothers. Kigain sheba Ruvain v'kitcha chutz m'Shimon. Right? This is going according to Rebbe Eliezer, who says that you could do that. Ruvain is mekadesh Sarah, and says she's also to everybody except for Shimon. Uba Shimon, and then Shimon comes, v'kitcha stam, and he's mekadesh her without any provision. So he causes her to be, we said it would only be kedushin if he causes her to be aser to someone, and in this case he causes her to be aser to Ruvain. The kedushay Ruvain ahana lemisa al alma, because Ruvain's kedushin helps to aser her to the whole world. The kedushay de Shimon ahana lemisa al Ruvain, and the kedushay of Shimon causes her to be aser to Ruvain, and therefore she is mekudeshes both to Ruvain and Shimon, so that when Ruvain and Shimon died childless, she is forbidden to Levi because she's falling from 2 brothers, and if you fall from 2 brothers, Levi cannot be miyabim.
How could she be married to 2 brothers at the same time?
Well, you had to be here in last night's daf, But last night's Daf, Rabbi Eliezer says that you could be Mekadesh a woman and say that she should be forbidden to everyone except for one person. Yeah. Well,
That seems a bit strange.
Right, well, you missed the Daf, so, we missed you, believe me. Now, and we just have been joined by Ilya Shutman and Abe Arbach. We are holding 5 lines from the bottom of Pei Beis Amud Beis. 5 lines from the bottom of Pei Beis Amud Beis. And again, if you're shocked, what happened to what happened to the whole Pei Beis? Last night we learned 3 blot because on Tuesday there's no share because of the Q&A, the annual Q&A in the Irgun Shirei Torah. Now, Boy Abaya. Abaya inquires, Amallah hari at muteres l'kol adam chutz meruven v'shimon. Now, here, this is really a question of how to interpret someone's words. What happened is Chatzkel tells Sarah, you're permitted to everyone except for Reuven and Shimon. The Chazav Amallah, and then he says to her, L'Reuven and Shimon, you're forbidden to Reuven and Shimon. So now, remember, according to the Rabbanan, such a Kiddushin doesn't work. Like Reuven says, how could you be Mekadesh a woman and say that she should be mutter to some people, right? So according to Rabbanan, the answer is, like Reuven, you can't, right? But then he says, after he says that you are Mekadesh to me, and excuse me, strike that again, as we welcome in Shelley Zeitman. 5 lines from the bottom of Daf Pei Beis Amud Beis. Boy Abaya. Abaya says, Amallah hariyat muteres l'kol adam. Now we're back to Gittin. He says, you're permitted to everyone, chutz meruven v'shimon. Except for Reuven and Shimon. You can't marry Reuven and Shimon. So of course, according to the Rabbanan, that's not good because it has to be creases, and it's not creases. It's not a complete severance. So, but then, the Chaz of Amallah, then Chatzkel says, L'Reuven and Shimon. It should be permitted to Reuven and Shimon. What did he mean? Mao. Mi amrinon mai de'aser shara. Do we say that he switched it and said, you could be permitted to Reuven and Shimon? Do we mean that mai de'aser shara, that which he prohibited, Reuven and Shimon, now he says they should also be permitted. If he does that, now it's a regular get. He's permitting her to everybody. Oy Dilmor, does he mean I'm making a switcheroo? You should be permitted to Reuven and Shimon, but also to everyone else. Oy Dilmor Maida Aser Shara, that which he prohibited, he permitted. Or Maida Shara Aser, and everybody else who he permitted before, now he's prohibited. Now, Im Tim Tzalaymar, if we say that no, he said you should be permitted to everyone except for Reuven and Shimon, and then he said Reuven and Shimon, he means Reuven and Shimon also. If we say Maida Aser Shara, that we say that he's just now relenting and saying, okay, you can be permitted to Reuven and Shimon too. If he says L'Reuven Mao, if he only says Reuven, he doesn't say Reuven and Shimon. Does he mean, you know what, Reuven v'hu adin l'Shimon? In other words, he meant, you know what, you could have the rest also. Reuven, and he meant Reuven, etc. Because that's what he started with before. Everybody except Reuven and Shimon. So he says, yeah, even Reuven. But he meant even Reuven and Shimon. He was relenting and allowing her to marry Reuven too, but he's still holding out on Shimon, which according to Rabbanan would make it no good, because it's not a crisis. Now, the imtim tzaloimer, L'Reuven Dafka, when he said Reuven, he meant only Reuven, and he's still holding out that she can't marry Shimon. What if he says you should be permitted to everyone except for Reuven and Shimon? And then he said, you know what, even Shimon. L'Shimon Mao. Did he mean even Shimon, take everyone? And when he said L'Shimon, it means V'huadin L'Reuven, Shimon and Reuven. V'ai become a Shimon because that's what he left off with. Mishum de Salak Minei. Oidilma l'Shimon Dafka, only Shimon, but he's still holding out that she can't marry Reuven. One more question. Boy Rav Ashi, Afla Shimon Maush. He said you should be permitted to everyone except for Reuven and Shimon. And then he says, even Shimon. When he says even Shimon, what does he mean by even Shimon? Af a Reuven kai doesn't mean even Shimon. No, it's Reuven and even Shimon, and then she's permitted to everyone. It's a regular get. Oy Dilma af a Alma kai, even Shimon besides everyone else, but he's still holding out on Reuven. So the Gemara says, Teiku tishbi yata kushas v'bayis. These questions are too tough. We have to wait for Eliyahu. Okay, now people have just began to show up here this evening as we are holding on Pei Gimel Amud Aleph, 8 lines from the top of Pei Gimel Amud Aleph. Welcome everyone, and welcome into Yeshua Shmuel Eisenberg, Yisrael Fisher from Tannersville, Philippe is joining us. It's good to have everybody. Now, remember, Rebbe Eliezer is the one that said the big chiddush that if Chatzkel says to his wife Sarah, you should be divorced to everyone except for Reuven, it's a good get. Now he said 2 mekayros for that. Either it says in the pasuk, Isha grusha me Isha lo yikachu. Even if a woman is divorced from just her husband, still a kohen can't marry her. So you see it's a good divorce, even if it's a partial divorce. Or because it says, V'holcha v'hoisa li'ish al acher, she goes and she marries an ish acher, even if she could only marry an ish. It doesn't matter her to everyone. Those were the 2 sources of Rebbe Eliezer. Also, as we're going to rehash this a lot tonight, let's remember that there's a question if the machloikis is by chutz or the machloikis is by almanas, where he says you should be divorced to everyone on the condition that you don't marry Reuven. Right? So now let's see. Tan Rabbanan. La'achar pitirasa yishel Rebbe Eliezer, after the passing of Rebbe Eliezer, actually it's Rebbe Eliezer, after the passing of Rebbe Eliezer, Nichnasu arba zikenim, 4 great sages entered into a discussion lohashiv al devarav, to refute his words. Who are these 4 great sages? And they are very great. Elu hein, Rabbi Yisrael Glili, Rabbi Tarfon, Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, and Rabbi Akiva. And now we're going to hear their refutation, one after another. Nen Reb Tarfon v'amar harishaholcha zu v'nisis la'achiv shel zeh shenesu alav. Remember, what's the case where he said that you should be forbidden to everyone except for Shimon. You should be permitted to everyone except for Shimon. Shimon you can't marry. So in such a case, Hari Shahol Chazu, now Sarah goes, V'nisis la'akiv shel zeh sheneser alav, and she marries Reuven, the brother of the one that she's not permitted to. Umeis b'loy banim, and then Reuven dies without children. She's not going to be able to marry Shimon. She's not going to be able to have Yibum from Shimon, because remember, he said you're permitted to everyone except for Shimon. Wouldn't it come out that with such a type of get, he's uprooting a mitzvah in the Torah? So this teaches us that you can't make a get in such a fashion. That's Reb Tarfon's refutation. Then Rabbi Yisrael Glili v'amar. Rabbi Yisrael Glili then chimes in, Heichan matzinu aser lezeh umuter lezeh. Where do we find anywhere that you're usher to one and you're mutter to someone else? Here the woman is divorced, and you're saying that she's still usher to Shimon. Ha'asr asr lakol, when she's usher to everyone, but mutter lakol. There's no such thing that she's going to be permitted to everyone except Shimon. That this is not an acceptable way of severance. And this is the authoritative explanation. If we could have some air conditioning. Also, I'm sorry to bother you. There's a cold water in the refrigerator. Nana Rabbi Lazar ben Azariah v'Amar. The pasuk says krisus. It has to be a total severance. Davar hakayreis beinai lebeina. It has to sever between him and her. Here it doesn't sever because she's still prohibited to Shimon because of him. There's strings attached. Halamanata she'ein zeh krisus. Comes along Rabbi Akiva now with two interesting refutations. Very good. Where do you find that? That's perfect. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'akol niyeh b'dvarav. Then Rabbi Akiva v'Amar. Rabbi Akiva says the following refutation. Harishahol chazu v'nisis le'echad min hashuk. Let's say after Chatzkel gives this conditional get to Sarah, saying that she's permitted to everyone except for Shimon, she goes and she marries Chaim. V'hayu labonim. And she has children from him. V'nis'ar mala ayniskarsha. She gets widowed or divorced. V'nisis l'zeh sheneser alav. And she goes ahead, disobeying what her first husband said, and marries Shimon, thereby uprooting the first get. Loi nimsa get bottle, doesn't that uproot the first get, and then it'll convert her children into mamzerim from the husband that she married afterwards? Or banah mamzerim. Now, how could we allow such a happenstance to happen? Halamanata she'ein zeh krisus. Now, the Gemara is going to ask later, well, that could happen with any condition, where he makes a condition that she should nurse her father for the rest of her father's life. She remarries, and then she stops nursing her father. So, the Gemara is going to ask that. Davar achar. And we're on the first wide line of Pei Gimel Lamed Aleph. Davar achar. Hari hoya shezeh shenesra alav kayim. Here's an interesting case. Let's say Chatzkel said to Sarah, you're permitted to everyone except Shimon, and Shimon is a Kohen. Shimon Kohen. And then Umeis Hamagarish. And then Chatzkel, after making this condition, he died. So, Loi Nimsis Almona Etzlai, to Shimon, since Chatzkel never divorced her to Shimon she would be a widow. Ugrusha Eitzel Kalada. She would be a divorcee to everyone else. Could Shimon now marry her? Very interesting question. Chatzkel says to Sarah, you're divorced to everyone except for Shimon. Then after that, Chatzkel dies. So to Shimon, Sarah is only a widow because she was never divorced from Shimon. Could Shimon as a Kohen marry her? Says Rabbi Akiva, no. Why? Because she's a divorcee for everybody else. And because of the chelik of her divorcee for everyone else, he can't live with her. V'kal v'chaymer. Uma grusha she akala. the isser of a divorcee to a kohen is much more less severe, it's much more lighter than the isser of an eishes ish. Uma grusha shikala asura b'shvil tzad gerishin sheba. She's ushered to Shimon because she's a divorcee to everyone else. Eishes ishi chamura. Remember when Chatzkel permitted her to everyone except for Shimon, that means that to Shimon she still has an Isser Eishes Ish. So Eishes Ishi Chamura, the Isser of Eishes Ish, which is more severe, like Kol Shrein, then that she should be forbidden to everyone else because she still has a fraction of an Eishes Ish because of Shimon. Halamanata Shein Zekrisis, that this kind of a divorce is not a divorce. So Amalan Rabbi Yeshua, so Rabbi Yeshua says to them, Ein Meshiven Esari Lachar Misa. You cannot refute the lion after his death. In other words, you're sitting here and you're refuting Rabbi Eliezer when he can't protect himself. You can't do that. Amar Rava says, in truth, Kulu Islu Pircha, all of these refutations can be refuted. Levarmid Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah. Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah says that it has to be a krisis, and if there's strings attached, it's not a krisis. The less like perch. There's no refutation. Tanya Namiyachi, Amar Rabbi Yaisi, Royani es diver Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah. I like the refutation of Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah that you can't do and say you're divorced to everyone except for a certain person, Medivrei Kulan, because of the fact that it's not a krisis. So now the Gemara is going to discuss what the refutations are. Very interesting analytical Gemara. I want to remind everybody again that tomorrow night, Mitzvah Hashem, I plan to be back in Fairways, and Gedalia, I'll say the Mishnah Yomis tomorrow night, back in Fairways, Amamar, those that are just joining us, we are holding 7 lines into the wide lines on Daf Pei Gimel Amud Aleph. Amamar, Nene Reb Tarfin v'Amar, Hari Shahol Chazu. Remember, he said you're divorced to everyone except for Shimon. So Hari Shahol Chazu. So Sarah goes ahead, V'nisis la'achiv shalzeh, and marries Shimon's brother Reuven, right? La'achiv shalzeh shenesra alav. She married the brother of the one that she's still forbidden to. Omeis b'loy banim, and then Reuven dies without children. She falls to Shimon. He won't be able to be miyabim her because he's still forbidden to her as an eishes ish. Lo nimtza zeh oiker davim min ha-Torah. So the Gemara says, oiker? He uprooted. Iyuakar? Did he uproot it? Elamasne lakar davim min ha-Torah. He stipulated to be oiker something from the Torah. So the Gemara says he didn't stipulate. He didn't tell her to marry Reuven. Masna? He stipulated. Did he say that she has to marry the brother of Shimon? He caused to uproot something from the Torah. Gairim? You're not allowed to cause? Then how could a person marry his niece? If he marries his niece and then he dies, his brother can't be Mekayim Yibam because it's his daughter. You shouldn't be able to marry your brother's daughter. Lest he dies without children. So you see, there's nothing wrong with just causing that there shouldn't be Yibam. So it's interesting that there's a whole question if 2 brothers should marry 2 sisters. There's a Rabbi Yehuda Chassid. Because if 2 brothers marry 2 sisters, they are making that it wouldn't be possible Yibam. Because if one dies, the sister falls to the brother, and there can't be Yibum because it's Achais Ishtay. So the Gemara says, Ubamai. When we make this refutation, what is it talking about? Ilema, if he said that you should be permitted to everybody except for Shimon, Ilema b'chutz, now the Gemara introduces us to an interesting din of Rebbe Eliezer. Let me talk about it outside first. Rebbe Eliezer holds that if Chatzkel says you're permitted to everyone except for Shimon, says to Sarah, you're permitted to everyone except for Shimon, and Sarah goes ahead and marries Chaim, then that chutz is off the table. Because once she marries Chaim, so then that wipes out anything that Chatzkel said. Ilema b'chutz misher shara Rebbe Eliezer. When she gets married in between, then that wipes out the Isser on Shimon. The Tanya Moed Rebbe Eliezer b'megarish es ishtay, where Chatzkel divorces Sarah. V'amala hariyat materis l'kol adam chutz mepleini. You're permitted to everyone except for Shimon. V'holcha v'nisas le'echem n'ashog. And then Sarah goes and marries Chaim. V'nis armaloi nisgarsha. She gets widowed or divorced. Shemuteres l'zeshin esolav. Then she becomes permitted to Shimon because there was an intervening marriage. Ella ba'almanas. It must be talking about ba'almanas because where it's a condition, the condition remains even after she gets married to someone in the middle. Now let's go to Rabbi Yossi Aglili's refutation. Then Rabbi Yossi Aglili v'amar heichan matzino asal lezeh mutar lezeh. Where do you find a person that's usher to one person and permitted to someone else? That you say that she's permitted to everyone except for Shimon. Ha'asr asal lekol. She's a married woman. She's forbidden to everyone. V'amutar mutar lekol. Says, but what do you mean? We find all over the Torah, v'loi vari truma kachim, truma and kachim, she'asur lezeh, it's permitted to a forbidden to a non-kain, u'mutaris lezeh, and it's permitted to a kain. Says Gemara, no, we're not talking about in general. Be'isr isha kamrina. So Gemara says, be'isr isha, it's also true. V'arei arayis, a person's sister is forbidden to him, but permitted to other people. Be'ishas kamrina. Says the Gemara, well, even by Ishas, even that which is caused by marriage, Hari Ishas Ish, she's permitted to her husband and forbidden to everybody else. Says the Gemara, Haina Pircha. That's the refutation. Now, Ubamai, Ilema Ba'almanas, if it's where he said, you should be permitted to everyone except for Shimon. Except for Shimon means that you can't marry Shimon, but she is permitted to him with znus. So there she's permitted to everyone. Hari hutra etzla bisnus. Ela b'chutz. It means it's a get for you, for everyone except for Shimon. Except for Shimon is that she's still an Eishes Ish for Shimon, so then she's forbidden even with znus. Nena Rabbi Kiva v'amar. And remember, Rabbi Kiva had two refutations. One was extremely interesting. As we welcome in Nachman Chapler, who's joining us. Good to have you, Nachman. Nena Rabbi Akiva v'amar Hari Shahol Chazu, in the event where, let's get the case, Chatzkel said to Sarah, you're divorced to everyone except for Shimon. Hari Shahol Chazu v'nisis le'echem n'ashuk. So Sarah goes ahead and marries Chaim. V'ayil abanim, and has children from Chaim. She gets widowed or divorced, and she goes and disobeys the Tanai, and she marries Shimon, get bottle, does not retroactively nullify the get that she was given by Chatzkel, and then when she married Chaim, the children that she had would be mamzerim, mamzerim. Says, what kind of a worry is that? Then you should say you could never divorce anybody with any condition. He gives her a get that she should nurse his father all his life, and then she marries someone else and stops nursing the father. maybe the Tanai won't be fulfilled. V'nimtza get batal b'nei mamzerim. So haina pircha. That's a refutation of Rabbi Akiva's argument. But again, ubamai, ilema b'chutz, where he said, here's your get except for Shimon. Well, when she marries Chaim, we said according to Rebbe Eliezer, she's permitted to Shimon. Mishra Shari Rebbe Eliezer, the Tanya Moida Haya Rebbe Eliezer, Megarish Ishtay, where he divorces his wife, Amal Ariat Matersel, Chal Adam Kutzim Aplaini, the whole of Nisis Lechem Nashuk, and she marries somebody else, when this Almaloy Nisgasha, the Chutz is off. Shematarsel Zeshin Esrolov. Ella, it must be in the case of Almanas. Now, so that means Rabbi Akiva's first refutation was for the case of Almanas. Now we'll see that his second refutation is for the case of Chutz. Davar Achar. Now this was a very interesting refutation. Remember we said that we see that fractions make a difference. Hari Shahoya Zeh Shenesra Alav Kayim, where Chatzkel gave a divorce to Sarah and said you could marry everyone except Shimon, and Shimon is a Kain. Omeis HaMegarish. And then Chatzkel dies. So really, to Shimon, who is a Kain, she's only a widow. Because he said that she wasn't divorced to Shimon. Yet we're going to say she can't marry Shimon because to everyone else she's a divorcee. And for the fact that she has a fraction of the divorcee, she can't marry Shimon. Loi nimtzas almana etzloi. She's a widow to Shimon because he said you're not divorced to Shimon. Ugrusha etzel kaladim, and she's divorced to everybody else. And yet we say she can't marry Shimon because of the fraction of the divorcee in her to everyone else. V'kal v'chaymer oma grusha she kala. Asura mishum tzad gerishin sheba, she's also because of the fraction of divorce in her. Then Eishis Ish Kamura, where he said that you should be permitted to everyone except for Shimon. So that means that Shimon she's still an Eishis Ish to Shimon. So then she should be forbidden to everybody else because she has a fraction of an Eishis Ish in her. Like Kol Shchein, because Eishis Ish is more chomer than the Isser to a grusha to a kayin. Now, ubamai, ilema ba'almanas. If this is talking about almanas, it wouldn't be an argument that she's not a divorcee to Shimon, because it's just that she's not allowed to marry Shimon. But she's not allowed to have, it's just that she's not allowed to marry Shimon, but she is allowed to have znus with Shimon. So therefore that means she's divorced to the extent of znus. So it's not a fraction of divorce. See, she's even divorced to Shimon. Hari grusha etzloi biznus. Ela b'chutz. So the Gemara says, so the first refutation is about almanas, and the second refutation is about chutz. So the Gemara says Rabbi Akiva should make up his mind. Rabbi Akiva, chutz svirulei, if he holds that Rabbi Eliezer's statement was about chutz, so lois of chutz, he should ask the second refutation, which is about chutz. V'i almanas svirulei, then lois of almanas, he should ask the first refutation about almanas. And the Gemara says, Rabbi Akiva shmielei, Rabbi Akiva heard the ikeda amar chutz. There are those that say that Rabbi Eliezer said his din about chutz. V'ikdam almanas. Mandi amar chutz, the one that says chutz, hi pircha. He asks the second pircha. O mandi amar almanas, hi pircha. Says the Gemara, O my pircha. What is the refutation? He made a good argument that if she would be forbidden to Shimon because of the fraction of gerusha in her, so she should be forbidden to everybody else because of the fraction of Eishis Ish in her that she's still also to Shimon. So the Gemara says, maybe you'll say, no. Inema Isser Kahuna Shani, Kahuna, which is more stringent, there we say that she's also because of the fraction of gerusha in her. Says the Gemara, but how Rabbi Eliezer Nami Me'Isser Kahuna Kamaizalei. Rabbi Eliezer learns his whole din from Isakuna, because he says Isha Grusha me Isha Lo Yikachu, that a woman even that's only divorced from her husband, you're not allowed to take. And that's in Isakuna. If you say you can't learn from Isakuna, how does Rabbi Eliezer learn from Isakuna? Says the Gemara, Kamaisele Rava Kerebis Yanai Mishum. Says the Gemara, well, Isakuna Kamaisele Rava. Says the Gemara, Kereb Yanai Mishum Zaken Echad Kamasni. We will learn, like Reb Yanai, that the Isser is not from Isha Grusha Mi Isha, but from the other pasuk of Aholcha Vaisel Ish Achar, that she could be divorced even if she's only permitted to one man. Aholcha Vaisel Ish Achar, and therefore it's not learning out from Kahuna. But the din that a fraction causes to be prohibited is only by kahuna, which is more severe. Now, continues the Gemara at the 2 dots, 8 lines from the top of Daf Pei Gimel Amid Beis. Amalan Rabbi Yeshua, so Rabbi Yeshua says to them, Ein Mashivan Esari La'achamisa. We can't refute the lion after his death. You can't do that. Without him here, you can't refute him. So the Gemara says from the fact that Rabbi Yeshua says that, it implies that Rabbi Yeshua could have also refuted it. L'memor Rabbi Yeshua kavasei sviralei. The Gemara says, do you mean to say that Rabbi Yeshua holds like no, it's not mashma that way. To the contrary, the Gemara says it seems to be that Rabbi Yeshua is defending Rabbi Eliezer. So asks the Gemara, "Lememra de Rabbi Yeshua kavasei really? Do you mean to imply that Rabbi Yeshua holds like Rabbi Eliezer? Va'iyunami mifrach kaparach. He also refutes Rabbi Eliezer. Hachi kamalun. He said, no, this is what he meant. L'didi nami yeslei percha. I also have a refutation. Mio bein l'didi bein l'didku. The lemaisa is we have to be fair, both according to me and according to you. Ein mashivan es ari la'chamis. You can't refute the lion after his death. He's not here to defend himself. Umay percha de Rabbi Yeshua. What would be the refutation of Rabbi Yeshua? The Tanya Amar Rabbi Yeshua. It's interesting. The pasuk says, "Ki yikach ish isha," when a man takes a woman. So that's the first taking. V'holcha v'hoisa is kedushin. V'holcha v'hoisa liyishachas. So it juxtaposes the first kedushin to the second kedushin. So makish koidmei havaya shniya lekoidmei havaya rishayna. We juxtaposed her condition before her second marriage to her condition before her first marriage. Just like before her first marriage, she's not asa to anybody. She's not tied to anyone. So also before her second marriage, she can't be tied to anyone. Therefore, you can't say you're permitted to everyone except for Shimon, because then by her second marriage, she's still tied to someone. She's still tied to be forbidden to Shimon. Gufa. So now, remember we said a very big chiddush, that according to Rabbi Eliezer, where Chatzkel says you're permitted to everybody except for Shimon, and then she goes ahead and marries someone else, and he dies or gets divorced, then she's permitted to Shimon. Gufa, Moed Rabbi Eliezer ben Megarish Ishtay, where he divorces his wife. You're permitted to everyone, chutz meplayni, except for Shimon. And she marries Chaim. She's permitted now to Shimon. So Heishiv Reb Shimon ben Elazar tshuva l'divrei Reb Eliezer. So Reb Shimon bar Elazar asks a refutation to Reb Eliezer. Heichon maitzinu, where do we find shezeh oiser? Right? Shimon says, Chatzkel says she's permitted to everyone except for Shimon. V'zeh matir. And when Chaim marries her, he causes her to be permitted to Shimon. Says Gemara, Loi, V'ari Yavama. What about the case of Yibam? The Baal oiser, the husband causes her to be prohibited. V'yavam matir. And the Yavam causes her to be permitted. Says the Gemara, no. Hasam Yavam hu ka'asala. The Yavam causes her to be Asa, because the fact that she falls to the Yavam causes her to be Asa. If there would be no Yavam, then she would be permitted to everyone. The Ime Baal, Hashaya V'kaima, once he dies, she would be permitted to everyone. Says the Gemara, Hari Nedarim Denoider Aser, that the one that makes the neder asers, V'chacham matter, and it's the chacham that removes the neder, and he's oiker the neder. So you see that the one who makes the neder asers it, and somebody else matters it. Says Rabbi Yochanan, chacham matter klum ela b'charata. He needs to have the regret of the one that makes the neder. So it's actually the one that makes the neder that causes it to be removed with his regret. Hari aforis habal. But what about the annulment of the husband? The isha neideris, the woman makes the neder or baal mefer, and the husband annuls it. Says the Gemara, there the lumdus is that we say that a woman, when she makes a neder, she does it al das baila. And therefore, if her husband doesn't want it, it's like a condition in her neder. Hasam kidrab pinchas mishmei derava, damra pinchas mishmei derava, kala nederes, any woman that makes a neder, al das baila in nederes, ishik sheira, oiser etzayin baala. Nana Rebbe Elazar ben Azariah v'amar, this we said was the knockout blow. Creases. The pasuk says it has to be a severance. Davar akoyres beinoi lebeina, something that completely severs without any strings attached. And here there will be strings attached because she's still forbidden to shemen. Halamadata she'ein zeh creases. So now the Rabbanon, what did they do with this drasha of creases? In other words, all the other rabbis that didn't ask this pircha, of Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, obviously they say creases refers to something else. V'rabbanan high creases my avdalei. They use it for a different drasha. If he says, here's your get on the condition that you don't drink wine. You don't drink wine forever, or you don't go to your father's house forever. Ein zeh creases. That's not a severance, because there's a string attached. Because of him, she could never go to her father. She could never drink wine. Shloishim yaim, only for 30 days, hari zeh creases. Now, v'idach, what does Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah do? He also needs creases for that. So he says, in the word creases, there's two drashas. It could have said koras, sefer koras, and it says sefer creases. So there's two drashas. Mikoras creases nafka. The idach and the rabbanan that don't hold that there's two drashas, koras creases loidash. They don't hold of this drasha of koras creases. I think we could stop over here. This was a big job. And share tomorrow again at 8:35. I want to remind everybody that they can send in, I don't know if I'll be able to answer it, but you could try to send in questions for the Irgun at rmmwsi@aol.com. Also, we're looking for a sponsor for Parshas Re'eh for the Chumash year. We do not have one yet. 718-916-3100, rmmwsi@aol.com. And now we're going to do the Mishnah Yomis.